to talk about reforming NTMs in Indonesia. 20 minutes, please. I will inform you if you still have 5 minutes left. Alright, okay, sure. So Ibu Lili will present with Ibu Ernawati Munadi. So Ibu Lili is the coordinator for the ASEAN studies, and Ibu Ernawati is doing for Indonesia. Please do.
Thank you. It's really an honor for me to be here, not only because I've been given the chance to have discussions with the panelists who are the experts on NTMs, but also a chance to have discussions with the best government officials and the best scholars of Indonesia. Thank you for having me today. In these sessions, let's discuss non-tariff measures in ASEAN. Next. While tariffs have been reduced, the number of non-tariff measures is increasing and is often blamed as a source of the lack of integrations in ASEAN. Yet, if I may quote Professor Lili, the recent discovery of Volkswagen cheating with US emission tests is a wake-up call for everyone on the importance of product standards. The solution is neither to increase the allowable amount of the NOx emissions, nor to eliminate the regulations that manage the amount of the limits of the NOx emissions, which is NTMs. This reminds us, unlike tariffs, non-tariff measures could actually play as a check of balance for the quality of goods. Next, we conduct a study of compiling database because as for now, each nation treats NTM database as if national defense data. Nobody really wants to disclose NTMs. So we started by collecting non-tariff measures in the 10 ASEAN countries. The national team of ASEAN countries, consisting of economists and government officials, together with the UNCTAD and ERIA teams, work together in developing NTM database and conducting analysis on how NTMs affect ASEAN trade. Next, the main value added of ASEAN, ERIA, and UNCTAD database is, first, it covers all regulations, including all national, international conventions. Second, we also examine all measures applied to affected product. It uses the national tariff lines, so we can tell exactly regulations X and the coding of NTM up to the affected products and who will be affected by this kind of regulations. Third, it uses the latest MAS, Multi-Agency Support Team classifications issued in February 2012, which makes the data internationally comparable. Last, the work is conducted by national experts, local think tanks, domestic economists at national level, in collaboration with government officials. Next, findings. As we can see here, as the average tariff rates of ASEAN countries declined from 7.2% in 2000 to 4.8% in 2014, the number of non-tariff measures increased from 1,576 measures in 2000 to 5,738 measures in 2015 in ASEAN. The increase of NTMs was notable not only in ASEAN countries but also the world, particularly between 2008 and 2011. Next, the total number of NTMs in ASEAN was 5,738 measures in 2015. 42% of the measures are in the form of TBT. 31 are SPS, 14 are export measures, and the rest of 12% are in the various forms of measures. Now everybody is looking at the numbers of NTMs of Indonesia and comparing it with other countries. Which one is doing bad, which one is doing good. Let's forget about the good things and the bad things about NTMs. I should clarify here that we, economists, government officials, should have a neutral point of view of NTMs. Not all NTMs are bad. Some NTMs, if they are not trade barriers, they could be good for safety, health, and environment protections. A country with a relatively higher number of measures does not mean it is relatively more protectionist than others. Even if a country has a relatively higher percentage of affected products to total product, it does not necessarily mean it will have relatively lower trade than the others. An example is Singapore. It might be surprising that Singapore has 100% of the 9,558 product lines of Singapore's are affected by NTMs. It means Singapore regulates all of its exported and imported products. In fact, Singapore's exports of goods increased from 230 billion US dollar in 2005 to 410 billion US dollar in 2015 with an average annual growth of 7.6%. Next. Oh, sorry, can I come back that one, please? But what does it mean? Does it mean that all NTMs are benign? Not really. Many regulations are poorly designed, failing to protect the public while unnecessarily complicating businesses. For instance, many countries have complicated pharmaceutical rules imports, but at the same time, it fails to prevent widespread traffic of counterfeits. There are several reasons for this. First, the government and we, economists, local think tank, we know very little incentive about how to design market-based regulations, confusing, effective, with cumbersome. Second, regulations are often enforced in punitive ways, reflecting anti-business culture of many administrations. Third, NTMs typically span the competences of several ministries with no coordination mechanisms to make the necessary trade-offs. So it's often more as a competition among ministers to produce regulations to show that they are doing something to regulate exports and imports. So this is something that we all would have to acknowledge. First, NTMs, we should view NTMs in a neutral point of view. But second, we have to acknowledge that we have very little capability to assess and design such good regulations. With that kind of the fact, next. So what we recommend is that let's have transparent and good quality of NTM that could serve as a tool of check and balance for the good quality of goods, for health, safety, and environmental protections. So ASEAN, this is something that we suggest to Indonesia and ASEAN countries and all countries in the world. Let's forget about trade negotiations approach and strive instead for three approaches. Because what's happening in the world right now, we put NTMs, we take it as a bargaining chip in the negotiations process. I'm gonna take this MTM if you take out your MTMs. It's over like that, happening like that in trade negotiations this time. That is why many countries, or I should say all of countries, treat MTM data as if there was national defense data. We keep MTMs in ourselves, and that's the fact create the problem for businesses. Because when the time they want to export and import, they do not know exactly what kind of a certain regulations that they have to comply. And this create uncertainty in regulations as well as no transparency, which will cause unnecessary burdens for businesses. So this is something that we, economists, local think tank, NGO, government officials should work together for having transparency in order to have a good quality of MTMs. First, transparency, transparency, and transparency. Second, cooperation in conformity assessment procedures. I think this is also something that Indonesia could work together with ASEAN countries or Indonesia's trading partners to work together in conformity assessment procedures. So one, it is standardized in Indonesia, it should also be accepted in all ASEAN countries. Likewise, if it is accepted or standardized in Singapore or in Malaysia, that kind of standard should be accepted in Indonesia. This is kind of conformity assessment procedures that Indonesia and ASEAN countries could work together. Third is dynamic disciplines. Businesses are dynamic. Products are dynamic. Now mobile phone can work as camera, as your chopping board probably. It can work as so many things, right? You cannot define mobile phone as only for calling. You can do it for so many things. Businesses are dynamic, products are dynamic. This is something that we have to work together. That to make MTMs viable, we have to do regular coordinations across ministers, and we have to do coordinations regularly in order to make our regulations more feasible and adapted by businesses. So this is pretty much from my side. Before I end, I would like to thank all my teams, even though they are not here with us today, all the teams that have worked for ASEAN countries, and some of them are here, Ibu Ruth Elizabeth, Ibu Anika Widiana, and Ibu Ernawati Munani. With this, I would also like to thank very much for the support of Indonesian government, Ibu Dona Butong, Pak Bahrul, Khairi, Pak Hasan for sending the government staff to work together with us. That's such an excellent work always to work with Indonesia's government. Thank you so very much.